Carrie Ann Stout, founder and CEO of Vinco Bar Exam Coaching. And we are back today interviewing another one of our incredible alum. Today we have Adriana with us, and we are celebrating her recent success passing the New York bar exam. And we're just going to chat with her about the bar. So hi, Adriana. Welcome.
Hi, Carrie Ann. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
But by the end of the day, when I'm recording these interviews, my cheeks hurt from smiling because I'm just so happy, like, to see everyone and to celebrate their success. So we'll just dive right in and start talking about things. So I want to start a little bit with like the process of deciding to hire a bar exam coach or tutor in the first place. So sort of where were you in your bar exam journey when you decided that you wanted to reach out and get some help with the bar exam, and sort of what were you looking for at that time?
So I am a repeat taker, and a friend of mine who is an attorney received the information for the bar exam summit that Vinco was holding and sent the information to me. And so I was like, well, what is this?
I don't know people. I don't know them.
I was like, okay, Vinco. I was like, all right. And so I signed up for the summit and I watched the entire summit, and I was convinced that Vinco was right for me, but I didn't want to rush into it. I said, let me think about it for a little bit. And it's kind of like a shopping experience where I would go to the store and see a pair of shoes. And I'm like, I'm not going to pick them up today. But if I keep thinking about the shoes, then that means it's meant for me to have them.
So we were the perfect pair of shoes.
We were the perfect pair of shoes. So I kept thinking, honestly, before I reached out to speak to you, I kept thinking about Vinco every day. And I'm like, because I am a repeat taker, I didn't want to try something that wasn't going to be beneficial towards me. Yeah. And so I just really wanted to take the time to think about it. And so I was like, and every day at work, at home, it was about twice a day, every day for about a week. And I was like, okay, clearly, if I'm looking at them every single day, a couple of times a day, I think this is a good fit, especially after the summit, because the summit was absolutely wonderful. Just to give just meeting the different coaches, the tips that were present during summit. And it's like, I got all this information for free from summit. And then like, wow, like what will happen if I was to get myself a coach for my own? So then that's when I spoke with you. And then after meeting with you one-on-one, I was convinced, and I was like, nope, I think this is absolutely like a right fit for me at this point where I was at in terms of being a repeat bar taker.
I love that. And I love talking to you because a lot of times the people who sign up to do these interviews, but most of our students in general are directly connected to the Vinco community in some way, right? So they had a friend who went through, or they know one of our colleagues who works at a law school who knows us personally. And so I'm so glad to have someone who, you didn't know us. It was a cold connection, which we get sometimes. Sometimes people read my Above the Law articles and things like that. But to, sort of to hear your journey into making that decision, because it's an investment. Everything in bar prep is an investment, right? And I really appreciate people who are thoughtful about that, particularly as repeat takers. You can sometimes get pressured. I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus here, but like, you get those companies that are like, I'm the miracle pill, like, right, you need to give me these thousands of dollars. And it's like, there is no miracle pill. And so you have to sit and think, what do I need? And will this be helpful for me? And like, I really just so loved that. And plus I love being compared to an amazing pair of shoes. So that's the best comparison I've ever heard. I love it so much. So having been through kind of that process now of deciding like who to work with, how to work with us, one of the number one questions that I'm always answering and clarifying is, well, what does really like a bar exam coach do? Because you have that, you have bar exam tutors, and like, I think that's clear. People know what that means. And what I'm learning from doing all these interviews is that being a bar exam coach or having a bar exam coach means something different to everyone. So I want to ask you, like, when you say that you had a bar exam coach, what do you mean by that? How do you explain that to people?
I mean, I think, so my coach was Coach Leslie, and she was absolutely amazing. We were a good fit for each other. She told me what I needed when I didn't know that I needed certain things. And I think that that was important to me. She helped me look at the bar exam differently. She was tough love all the time. She was a friend. I look at her also as a mentor, someone who has been through this process that can help bring me towards the other side. One of the things that Leslie stressed to me, which I didn't see, which I think was also very helpful in me passing the bar, was the self-care that I needed throughout the time. You know, because I'm a repeat taker, I tend to, and I think previously it was always study, 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 by the book, learn, 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 learn all the time without taking those breaks. And I think with Leslie mentoring me and coaching me and guiding me, she's like, no, like, you need to take a break. You need to do something for yourself. And to me, that's a foreign concept. To me, it's
Totally
like, no,
counterintuitive,
yeah,
right?
like, it's the bar exam. Like, no, there is no breaks. There is no eating, and Leslie will be like, have you eaten today? Yes, 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 I have. So it was really like a guide. Like, she was just this guide for me of how to do this thing correctly, and to also help me understand, to forget everything that I've ever learned in terms of what I thought I knew in order to pass the bar.
Yeah.
She was really like, just forget all about it. Like, this is what you're gonna do. Like, that's nice that you learned all those things. Now this is what you're gonna do.
I can hear her voice. That's nice. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, now forget it.
Yeah.
That's a total Leslie line. I'm laughing because you're the second of Leslie's students from that administration that I've talked to today, actually. And both of you have said self-care and taking breaks. And it's just so funny to hear the themes that come up for the coaches, like, because they know too. And in making those matches, like, I tend to try to put people with a coach who has that philosophy if I think they need that, right? If I have someone who takes too many breaks and they go somewhere else, right? They go to someone else. So I think that is a really important message to hear too. It's like a lot of times when I ask students, well, what was like a big change? And I'll ask that to you in a minute as well. When they say things like self-care and taking breaks, it's like, I feel like the students listening don't believe us, like that's something that could make such a big difference. But time again, that's the answer that I get as you just gave. So kind of continuing with your journey in general. So you talked about being a repeat taker. As you know, most of our students are repeat takers. And one of the reasons I like to do these is, even if people never hire us, having you guys as a model for success, right? You are now the inspiration, right? Like, you watch these videos before to get inspiration, and now someone's going to watch your video and get inspiration. And that's incredible to me. But talk a little bit about your journey with the bar exam up until the exam that you passed. So like, then we can talk about some of the differences.
So I think, the last exam that I had taken was the July 2019 exam, and didn't pass that. And at that point, because that wasn't my first or my second time with the July 19 exam. And so I told myself that I really needed to get a break and take a break. So I did not sit for the February 2020 exam, which was the last, because of everything with the pandemic, that was the last UBE exam that was given. And so I think, in order for myself to stay fresh and make sure that I wasn't losing that time, which what I thought would have been a July 2020 administration, I was reviewing some of the material on my own. But I think that for me was a difference. I was doing things again on my own. And as a repeat taker, what was I going to do? I've already, sat through different companies, different bar prep companies, but it wasn't a bar company thing. And it wasn't necessarily a me not knowing the information thing. It was about overcoming my test anxiety. It was time management, because I was working full time, taking the bar exam. It was like, I have like all of these things in the air. So how am I going to manage it all? So when I finally connected with Vinco and I got Coach Leslie as my wonderful coach, she really helped put things in order for me. So it was kind of like, I see all these balls in the air, and now working with Coach Leslie, I was able to put the balls in order for myself, and I knew what to pick up. I knew what to not necessarily spend a lot of time on, because I think that that's also another reason why people who don't pass the bar exam, people tend to like to study what they know because it makes them feel good.
Yes.
But but you have to kind of like you know it. You don't. So what's an area that I knew well? Let's say criminal law. I don't need to study criminal law as intently as I did, but maybe I really need to pick up that secure transactions, those subjects that people hate to pick up. And having Leslie like plan out my day was very, and tell me what to do, was actually amazing for me. And for me, that's what I needed. I needed somebody to tell me what to do on every particular day. I needed somebody to tell me how I should be spending my time. And Leslie worked in those breaks. Like, listen,
no problem telling you how to do anything,
right.
Leslie.
And she'll say, like, listen, you've been doing too much, take a break. And I'm like, no, Leslie, I can't take a break, and the self-care component it really changed my life, and it really changed the way that I saw the bar exam. It also it made me calm, and I think that was probably the one thing that I was missing from all of my previous bar exams till now. I didn't realize how calm I needed to be in order to be successful on the bar exam, because it was never about me not knowing the law. I mean, ask me any question outside of bar exam, testing or studying conditions, and I can give you the answer. I can write an essay for you. So I never not knew the law. It was about how to take this test and how to pass this test. And that's what Vinco was able to give to me, as well as, and Leslie through Vinco.
And I want to pick up on a thread that you had mentioned earlier in that response, which is like that you kind of saw all the pieces, but it was like that having a hard time figuring out like the order of operations. Remember in like grade school math,
Yes.
like PEMDAS? It's
Yes.
like if a lot of people think the order of operations is memorize everything and do practice questions. And then they keep doing that framework over and over and over again. And they can't understand why it's not working. And then that's one thing that we do is that's the first framework that we change for everyone. Is
Right.
that's not right.
Absolutely.
And so
I think and Leslie said it during the summit. And then when I started working with her, it was the first thing. And she said, start doing all the subject areas of multiple choice questions from day one. Do, 25 questions, 50 questions. And we built that up. And most, other bar prep companies will say, well, today you're working on torts, for example, and you're going to do 20 torts questions, where it's like, no, you're going to go right in and we're going to do all the multiple choice questions at once. And then learning, like reading the questions that you got wrong and understanding why you got wrong. And I think that also definitely led me to my success in terms of like the multiple choice questions, because my multiple choice score did go up. And it was because I really began to see how the multiple choice questions were being written. I began to see patterns in why I was getting the questions wrong. And it never went back to I didn't know the law, but you have to understand now how the bar examiners are asking the question. And by doing all of these multiple choice questions, I began to see how bar examiners were asking the questions. And I think that definitely made a difference.
Yeah, like we'll push you guys right off the deep end into mixed multiple choice questions, which can feel really uncomfortable. Like people aren't used to doing that. And then you see really low scores. And so there's this like remapping in your brain that has to happen where we're not attached to those scores, like we're attached to progress. And so if that means we have to go back to go forward first, then we're going to do that. But lest anyone think that you passed the bar exam because you had the perfect conditions to do so, I would really like to dive into the fact that you were studying for the bar during an international pandemic. Your bar exam was canceled twice, and you were working full time during bar prep. And so we got kind of two different mindsets around this. Students who are in that real position that you're in, where like, that's a struggle. Like you did not have an easy task in front of you and they just feel like it's not possible. They can't do it. And then we have students who come with like excuses. So I want you to dispel all of that for everyone right now and kind of talk about how you manage like everything going on with bar prep and how you still made it work for you.
So one of the things that we have 24 hours in a day, and it's about how are you going to manage those 24 hours. So I had to work full time. I had to be at work by 9 o'clock. So I would get up at 5:30 in the morning and then do my multiple choice questions for the day. Did I want to do it? No, but I had to. And so I would also be very selfish in my time at work. Before studying with Vinco, I wasn't taking my lunch breaks. I would work right through lunch. And so that was another thing that Leslie would impress upon me: take your lunch. And so when I would take my lunch, I would actually review the multiple choice questions that I got wrong in the morning on my lunch break. And so then I would come home at night and I would do whatever rest of the studying that I needed to do. And so that's kind of how I managed my day. And I think writing things down, like, what do I have to do today? If I had a doctor's appointment for that day, I would write it around and then I would adjust. But I think also keeping Leslie abreast of everything that was going on was very helpful, because she did that thinking for me. She was able to say, okay, look, this is what you have going on. Let's pivot, let's see how we can make this work. And it was able to work. Sometimes, we tend to want to do more, and you don't necessarily always have to do the 5,000 questions. Sometimes you can, the 5,000 multiple choice questions. Sometimes you can just do just enough to get the lessons that you need in order to do well on the bar exam.
Well, I think you highlight a really important point for anyone who is working with someone, which is like transparency in what's going on, because a lot of times students would not fully disclose, and then their coach is over assigning because they don't realize like everything they have going on. And then the student's mad at the coach and the coach is mad at like, being like that open communication about like, here's what's going on, because they can help you prioritize, right? Like, I think that was super important for you. That's like, hey, let's just like reevaluate. And then like some things are just going to get cut off the list. You know what I mean? And then some things will get elevated in importance. So I think you're an amazing example of like what happens when you're willing to stick with it and make sacrifices, right? Like getting up, I'm an early morning person. Like I know it's not super easy to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day for a long period of time. Yeah. But being able to do what needs to get done is part of it, And so that I'm really glad for people to hear that part of your story. So now people are going to want advice from you now that you passed the bar. It's this amazing thing that happens, which is I have a whole business now because once I passed the bar exam and people started asking me questions about it. So someone's going to come to you one day in the near future and say, I am taking the bar exam, Adriana. Like, what advice do you have for me? So what's like one or two things that you would tell someone?
I think being honest with yourself at all points of the process. Are you, it's like what you said, are you doing the work or are you making excuses? Because if you're making excuses, then you're just not going to pass the bar exam. Sometimes less is more. I think that was amazing. I mean, I don't necessarily want to do a plug for Vinco, but sign up with Vinco.
I mean, I'm not going to say no.
Sign up with Vinco, because I think also the weekly calls that we had on Saturday mornings were so helpful. And that also, it allowed me, I'm a very competitive person with myself. So it's like, oh, we have a Saturday morning calls. Well, let me make sure that I do the 2 essays that were assigned. And so that also kept me on target, like that and do the work, sometimes do the work, but be honest with let's say this, being honest with your time, I think is very important. Are you studying something because you want to say to yourself, oh, well, I'm studying something? Or are you studying something because you're like, I really don't know this and I really need to take this time to really learn and understand that information? And I think making that shift was very important. Sometimes, like I said earlier, I would want to study things because I knew it and it would make me feel good. And I would do those multiple choice and only in that question set. And because that would make me feel good and I would get, 14 out of 16 and that would be great. And it's like, well, no, like now let's move over to the stuff that you don't know. And so I really, start reading the essay questions, the MPTs, the way that Coach Steve set up the MPT structure on how to pass the MPT. I know that it was my MPT that also helped and Steve's method of how to approach the MPT. Like it really, I don't think honestly that it didn't click until the day of and during the bar exam, but it worked.
Listen, that's the moment. It really only matters if it works then. It doesn't matter if it works any other time.
I remember I was typing up, and that was another thing. I was always a handwriter for the bar exam, and this was my first time typing the bar exam because I had to. It was a remote examination. So I'm typing my MPT, and I'm like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do the whole time. And I know based on the previous MPTs that I've written, what I did not do before that I put into this MPT in order for me to pass. So it all comes together, but I think it's just like, always be honest with yourself throughout the entire process, and be honest with the people and transparent with the people that are working with you and that are helping with you. You don't necessarily have to do it by yourself. This thing called the bar exam. I mean, I think that was another thing. I tend to want to do things by myself and on my own. And I say, I got it, like I'm fine. I'm also a Taurus. So we tend to do those kind of
your personality. No, but that's something actually like I want to highlight is that we can like us lawyer types, right? It's like that type A personality, like we're high achievers and we're used to being able to just figure things out. And so it can be like a real humbling journey, like this bar exam thing in general, even people who pass on the first time, but like it's a struggle and they have to ask for help along the way is a humbling journey, right? And then, so I think that's a big thing is like being self-aware enough to say, hey, like I need help is important.
Yeah. So it just focus, and it can be done. It can really be done. And again, like
Can be done.
Yeah, don't work harder, work smarter. Like that's
a Coach Leslie saying for sure. Yeah. That's one of her favorites. So I have one more question, which is entirely self-serving question. And you've kind of hinted at a few of these things throughout. But I like to ask students this question because some of the people watching these videos may want to hire Vinco. And I mean, you've basically given us a commercial here, but I want to ask you what like your favorite thing, and you can't say Leslie, what was your favorite thing about working with Vinco on our coaching program?
I think the Saturday morning calls were actually probably my favorite thing working with Vinco. I think seeing other students in the same position as me, and honestly, looking back, that probably was my favorite thing because it helped me. I didn't feel so alone because law school, everything about law school can be very isolating. Studying for the LSAT, getting into law school itself, studying for the bar. But to see people every week in the same position that I am, it helped. It didn't make it feel so alone and so isolating. And then interacting with people, like with all the coaches that that knew how to pass this exam, that actually was just so helpful. That was like the best thing. And so it became something that I would look forward to every week. I mean, I was happy with the pandemic that we had a couple of extra Saturdays in there, but when we stopped having Saturday calls, I was a little sad. I was like, well, wait a minute.
I remember being like, all of a sudden I had that like, oh shit moment where I was like, wait a second, our math isn't going to add up. Like I need to figure something out with these calls now. And I was like, oh God, I'm doing trust essays for more Saturdays. But the thing I want to highlight from what you said there is like, that's exactly why I started doing the calls in the first place, was because back when it was just me doing this with like 5 people, everyone was saying the same thing. I feel like I'm alone. It's just me. I'm the only person. I was like, None of that, because I'm working with 4 other people who are just like you. Let's all get together on Saturday mornings. That's exactly how this started. And then from there, obviously now this is way beyond me and a few people, but the premise is still there. And like time and time again, that's what students tell me, which is that they, that's what they really value about it. So I'm glad it's still serving that purpose after all these years of doing it. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your still very busy schedule to chat with me. I really appreciate it. Congratulations again. We're so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
And for those of you watching, we'll be back again soon interviewing another one of our alums. So I will see you next time.